Good morning and welcome in. This is Five Clubs on Golf Channel.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. It was, woo! Boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on Five Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs. Great to have you with us live on this Tuesday morning from our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Golf Channel, and also that is PGA Tour Radio Channel 92 on Sirius XM. I'm Gary Williams, and as you know, this show is presented by Century Insurance. They invest in golf in significant ways, starting with being our presenting sponsor, but most importantly with United States Golf Association and with the First Tee as well. But their business is business insurance. Evaluate yours with them. Century Insurance, they want to be right by you. Today, we will be joined by Gabby Herzig from The Athletic and also a contributor here to Five Clubs. We begin a new year with her off of big news. And a new contributor to Five Clubs, who is going to be joining me at the bottom of the hour, Josh Carpenter, who covers the business of golf from the Sports Business Journal. He will be with me in studio. Timely because of the news that was confirmed yesterday. And let me just say, it's nice to follow a show. Jimmy Roberts, congratulations to him. His program, The Big Swing, which debuted this morning here on Golf Channel. Timely that he had an extensive and comprehensive conversation with Greg Norman, who was the ultimate disruptor at the launch of LIV, and LIV is front and center this morning. And one additional note, William Sides is going to join us because our ambition this year in 2026 is that every week you're going to hear from somebody who wins a golf tournament. And in their eyes, whatever level it might be, it is significant. He won the Jones Cup last week, one of the great amateur events in the world of golf. We were there, did our show from there last Wednesday at Ocean Forest. So the senior from SMU is going to join me here as well on a Tuesday edition of Five Clubs. I begin with the Brooks Koepka news. And look, we talked about it at length yesterday. This thing, as we said here and has been said by others, that this was going to go very swiftly. There was no way that the application that he presented to the PGA Tour after announcing jointly with LIV that he was going to leave LIV Golf, and once he applied for reinstatement for the PGA Tour, he had to have some sense that at some point he was going to be permitted to compete back again on the PGA Tour. Well, yesterday, it was early afternoon that Brian Rolap, who runs the PGA Tour, issued, and this is in part, not in full, in part what he shared yesterday on all the PGA Tour's various platforms. On December 23rd, 2025, Brooks Koepka notified the PGA Tour that his previous affiliation had concluded, and he subsequently applied for reinstatement of tour membership. This prompted our boards to evaluate how we deliver the best version of the PGA Tour for our fans, players, and partners, with severe and justified consequences, which has resulted in a new returning member program designed to provide an alternative path back to the PGA Tour competition for past members who have achieved at the highest accomplishments in the game. The returning member program mandates heavy and appropriate limitations to both tournament access and potential earnings that we believe properly holds returning members accountable for substantial compensation earned elsewhere. It also includes elite performance-based criteria that requires winning the Players' Championship, Masters Tournament, PGA Championship, U.S. Open, and the Open Championship between the years 22 and 2025. And then finally, its strict limitations, which Brooks has agreed to, include a 5-year forfeiture of potential equity in the PGA Tour's Player Equity Program, representing one of the largest financial repercussions in professional sports history, with estimations that he could miss out on approximately $50 to $85 million in potential earnings, depending on his competitive performance and the growth of the tour. At the request of the PGA Tour, Brooks has also agreed to make a $5 million charitable donation, the recipients of which will be determined jointly. So, the idea that he was going to be greenlit to compete right away, I thought was going to happen. I also thought that there would be some financial repercussions. Now, I thought that the restitution would be that last part. I did not consider that he would also include forfeiture in the player equity program. Now that window, that number, that 50 to 85 million, look, that algorithm is based on, as he said, Brian Rolap in his statement, a combination of his own individual performance, which again, the equity program and the equity that you gain as a member of the PGA Tour is commensurate with your own performance and then at large, the growth of the tour. So I don't think the number is unreasonable. Now, 85 is top end. I don't know that 50 is the bottom, is that the minimum? I'm not certain. What I know is that in concert with the $5 million charitable donation and the equity program forfeiture, in addition to him not being able to accept sponsor exemptions in signature series events in 2026, which is significant. Now look, Brooks Koepka is fully exempt by virtue of him winning the PGA Championship at Oak Hill in 2023 through 2028. So here is what Brooks Koepka said after Brian Rolap released his statement. He said, "I want to thank my family and my team for their continued support throughout every step of my professional career. When I was a child, I always dreamed of competing on the PGA Tour, and I am just as excited today to announce that I'm returning to the PGA Tour. Being closer to home and spending more time with my family makes this opportunity especially meaningful to me. I believe in where the PGA Tour is headed with new leadership, new investors, and an equity program that gives players a meaningful ownership stake. I also understand there are financial penalties associated with this decision, and I accept those. Finally, I want to thank the fans. Your support means more to me today than ever before, and I look forward to seeing you soon at the Farmers Insurance Open and the WM Phoenix Open." So Brooks Koepka will start his season immediately, a couple of weeks from now at the Farmers Insurance Open at the end of January, and then returning to Phoenix where he won twice, 2015 and 2021. Joining us now, again, great to have her with us back again in 2026. She is one of the best writers covering the game of golf for The Athletic and a contributor here to 5 Club. She is Gabby Herzig, joining us this morning after returning from, I don't know how many balls she hit in the collective over her respite, topping 1,000 maybe. Good morning.
You know, not quite, Gary. I wish we got up to that number, but it was a great little break for the holiday season, and I'm happy to be back with you.
Well, it's great to have you back on the heels of news that we thought was coming. Now, what we thought was some clarity as to what is the re-entry point for him, and then we'll get to potentially others. Let's start with this. I know you've been reporting on this for The Athletic. Give us your overall takeaway of the penalties that he is going to incur, the forfeiture of what he's not going to be eligible for. Take us through that first.
Yeah, Gary, it's an interesting way for the PGA Tour to structure this decision for sure, in, making those penalties very much rested in the future, in future incurring payments that Brooks is not going to, reap the benefits of, like other PGA Tour players who have stayed loyal to the PGA Tour have. And I think, that obviously points the PGA Tour's decision to provide some kind of incentive for Brooks to come back. I think, there is a way that this deal could have shaped out where it wouldn't really make sense for Brooks to take it. But I think this kind of walked the line of, enticing some of these stars to consider the deal while also appeasing the rest of the tour membership by providing a pretty strong penalty for the future. I do think we're going to hear opinions from PGA Tour players in the coming days that might, share that they think the penalties could be harsher. And I'm not totally in disagreement of that. I mean, Brooks defected from the tour. His move deeply impacted the PGA Tour's product for so many years. And now he's coming back to a tour where the purses are increased and the product is so much stronger because of, a move that he made and his peers made. I think it's going to be a very different story if someone like a Bryson DeChambeau or Jon Rahm makes that move and takes the decision. So it's definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks, Gary, and I'm very curious to see what happens before that February 2nd date.
Yeah, no question. And we'll get to Bryson and Rahm and the other players player, this small window, this very narrowly defined criteria as to who else is eligible. It's only 3 of them. In terms of insulating the current membership beyond what they think he should or should not be eligible for, or the severity of the penalties, how about his presence in tours? I think one thing that should be made abundantly clear is that let's say he makes his way into the FedEx Cup playoffs. It's like, well, he's pinching somebody else. No, he isn't, right?
Right, exactly. I think that was a really strong move by the PGA Tour. There could have been a lot of chatter about Brooks taking away a spot. I mean, even when Vijay Singh announced a couple weeks ago that he was going to use his career money exemption on the PGA Tour and was, quote unquote, taking away a spot from a younger player in some of these fields, people started to get a little antsy about that. So that is not the case at all for Brooks Koepka. And I think the PGA Tour made a really smart move by deciding to do that, expanding the fields, making an entire new membership category for this, quote unquote, Brooks Koepka rule. And I think that's one of the things that, new leadership like Brian Rolapp is really considering. They want to make fans happy, but they also don't want to totally displease the players like some of the former moves of the previous PGA Tour administration might have rubbed some guys the wrong way. And I truly think that this decision this week and the swiftness in which it happened definitely was something that marks the new perspectives of Brian Rolapp's leadership and how he's he is aware of the past that's happened in the PGA Tour, but he's not wedded to the prior belief system that they were operating under before he came in.
Gabby, so he is ineligible for sponsor exemptions in signature series events, half of which don't have cuts. So there's a forfeiture because because of his profile, there's a reason why he's back here. He's a commodity. That some of those tournament directors would want to give him a spot. He's not eligible for any of those. The other part is he's not eligible for FedEx Cup bonus money as well. And in the regular events, all those events that he's in, him being added potentially actually adds more players to get to the proper number. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They have to even out these fields. I mean, Brooks isn't going to be, registering for the WM Phoenix Open and playing alone. It's a really interesting model that they've created here. And I do think, one of the biggest storylines now this year is going to be how does Brooks play in PGA Tour events? It's been a while since he's teed it up in 4-day competitive events with the cut. I mean, not to knock on LIV, but that's a totally different competitive model than he's seen for the majority of his playing in the past few years. And to have something to chase after, qualifying for the signature events purely based on his play and merit is going to be something worth watching. And I think he's probably back home in Florida practicing pretty good right now to make those appearances and, make people believe that he actually still has the competitive juices to compete on the PGA Tour, which I think is a valid question for people to be asking right now.
I think it is too, because he has one of the truly unique resumes in golf history. If you balance his major championship victories with his regular tour wins, there's no resume like it, truly. And I'm not including players who didn't play on the PGA Tour on a regular basis. I'm not including the likes of Seve Ballesteros, who dipped his toe in the water very, very briefly. I'm talking about somebody who year in and year out was playing 25 events on the PGA Tour and would win here and there, but would show up and be the biggest game hunter that we saw. Now, let me ask you about the player equity program. That $50 to $85 million, sometimes I know valuations can be like voodoo economics. What are you hearing about the plausibility that whether it's the low end, the high end, somewhere in the middle, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to estimate, Gary. It all depends on Brooks's performance throughout the season. And the player equity program is, those investments are meant to be long term, right? So he isn't going to receive any equity grants for the next 5 years, but as 2031 hits, if he's still competing on the PGA Tour, he's going to start reaping those benefits of being a PGA Tour member and improving the product. So, I think the conversation is really around what exactly is the penalty that Brooks is paying? He had to make a $5 million charitable donation alongside the PGA Tour. That's really the upfront payment that Brooks is incurring to play on the PGA Tour, to compete on the PGA Tour. The rest of all of this is very much hypothetical, depending on how Brooks performs and what kind of investments he would hypothetically be able to be granted as a PGA Tour member. So I think that's kind of where the frustration might be coming from some of these guys, is that the upfront penalty maybe wasn't enough or wasn't strict enough for those future payments. Like, one sentiment I've heard tossed around is maybe he shouldn't be able to ever have equity in the PGA Tour after doing what he did and defecting to LIV. So, it's an interesting conversation, and I'm curious to see, what Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm, Cam Smith, if they come out with statements about those penalties and what they think about, the structure that the PGA Tour has set out right now. And I'm curious to see what they have to say.
Yeah, let's get to those three, because now with the clock ticking, and it's not like, there's a lot of sand in the hourglass. There's not. The deadline is February 2nd, which, by the way, that's 2 days before the start of LIV's first event of the 2026 season in Saudi Arabia. So it's 22 to 25. You immediately go, okay, who are those players? It's Cam Smith, it's Bryson DeChambeau, and it's Jon Rahm. Let's talk about the plausibility from ascending to descending order. Are any of them, as you look at these three, do you center on one of them that there is even a remote possibility that this would happen?
I really can't tell at this current moment, Gary, but I think the most interesting one to me would definitely be Bryson DeChambeau, because he truly is the needle on LIV right now. And I know he was talking earlier this year about the process of renegotiating his contract. There were some comments tossed around about, what if I just ditch it all and just play YouTube golf? He seriously has the power right now, especially now that the PGA Tour has handed him this option. So, someone like Bryson could effectively, shut down some of LIV's biggest draws. The crowds that appear in person at LIV golf tournaments, a lot of them are there just to see Bryson. And I truly think he would be damaging the product by, even considering this option. If he decides to stay, I also think that would be a pretty big win for LIV Golf. So it is going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks. I'm curious if we'll hear anything from Bryson himself, or it will be speculation until that date comes. But to me, he's the most interesting in terms of the longevity of the product, both the PGA Tour product and the LIV Golf product, because whatever he decides to do, it's going to have a massive impact. And Jon Rahm is interesting too. Obviously, he has a little bit of a pickle right now with how the Ryder Cup situation is shaking out, his eligibility, and I think an avenue to the PGA Tour and not having to worry about what happens in the arbitration cases in the UK is a serious potential draw for Jon Rahm. And then Cam Smith, I feel like offering the olive branch to Cam Smith, he kind of was just potentially looped in with those exemption categories that the PGA Tour drew out for this program, which is interesting because Cam Smith has really not been informed for several years now, despite being such an accomplished player, in the years where he was winning a lot and performing well. So it's truly a mind-boggling mix right now. And I'm, like I said earlier, very curious to see what we hear in the coming weeks.
Yeah, when Cam left, though, it was really on the heels, having won the Players, having won the Open Championship. He was so hot. There was inarguably one of the best players in the world, and then the indifference of his performance, and then you couple that with the major championship performances when people have been more aware, I think at large, of him playing, have also been uninspiring as well. I want to read one thing to you. Last thing, Brian Rolapp said, quote, "This is a one-time defined window, and it's not a precedent for future situations. Once this door closes, there's no promise that this path will be available again." What do you make of that?
It's putting the pressure on, Gary. This is truly the PGA Tour, operating for the first time in a while on the offense and offering these guys this one-time window and truly some time pressure, and the clock is ticking for them to make a decision. And I think it just represents the kind of new era that the PGA Tour is in, being in a place where they can operate out of strength and not, catering to every move that LIV makes, every player that threatens to defect. They truly have some leverage here now in offering this path. And I think that's a promising sign for PGA Tour fans in how, Brian Rolopp is going to operate in the coming years with, inheriting all of this. And that's how I read it. And I do think, despite the uniqueness of the situation, it was a really smart move by the PGA Tour. Also, for another reason, which I feel like has been a little bit overlooked in this discussion, is kind of eliminating any antitrust concerns now with allowing LIV players to come back to the tour, not offering lifetime bans anymore, is definitely something that I'm sure they considered behind the scenes from a legal perspective. So again, just a smart move by the PGA Tour all around, creating that pressure to offer that pathway to these three guys.
Thank you as always. It's great to have you back. Good to see your face. Looking forward to a lot of your input, your very smart input all year long. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
All right, there is Gabby Herzig of The Athletic, contributor here. And Brian Rolopp, I honestly think that the smartest thing he said was the idea, this precedent is a one-time thing. But guess what? Here's the thing about precedent or precedents. They change. Lines move, especially in sports, all the time. We take a break here. We continue. Josh Carpenter from the Sports Business Journal a little bit later on, and joining us next, he won the Jones Cup. William Sides from SMU. It's a Tuesday here on 5 Clubs Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM. We're back after this. Back in on this Tuesday here on 5 Clubs Golf Channel and, of course, PGA Tour Radio. That is Channel 92 on Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. If you want this merino Crown Flex shirt jacket that I'm wearing, you can have it at a discount right now. They've got a sale website-wide at petermillar.com. All right, joining me now. He's got style. He's part of the Visor Brigade, and he wore that visor to a trophy, one of the best trophies in amateur golf. He won the Jones Cup. He joins us now, the senior from SMU, William Sides. William, good morning. Congratulations. How you feeling?
Feeling great. A little tired from the week, but just excited to, get a win at the Jones Cup. Feel pretty special.
You should. It is one of the best amateur events in the world, not only because of the setting, but strength of field. This was the 22nd edition. You probably looked at that trophy and went, okay, he's won a major, that guy's got tour wins. It's very, very impressive. Let's start with just the week itself. When it's shortened, does an event that gets shortened change your mindset at all? Because now it's kind of goes from a mini marathon to almost a sprint.
Correct. It definitely did a little bit. It was interesting waking up on Saturday morning after playing 11 holes and only having 7 holes left, and they had already said it was shortened to 36. So the mindset changed a little bit. I been just hitting it really well all week and just really trying to give myself chances out there, and I knew only 36 holes, that if I could keep hitting it the way I did, I was feeling great and could get on a little run, which eventually happened there on the back 9.
Yeah, it did. So you turned an even par, and the leaderboard is jammed up. You birdie 11, 12, and 13. How aware, look, as great as the event is, there's only so much information you can have on the golf course. What was your awareness when you went on that little run in terms of where you were in relation to the top of the leaderboard?
I don't really look at the leaderboard at all. I typically just kind of stick to my game plan and try and not look at that. And so the game plan all day was just fairways and greens, and kind of stuck to that, and ended up getting hot a little bit on the last 3 and made a couple putts and chipped in. So, that was it.
William, as your college career has progressed, you've been ascending. And, I was talking about this over the weekend on Golf Central. The Stevens Cup doesn't have long history, but great venues, terrific teams that are in that competition. What does winning, in terms of it compounding itself, as far as your belief system, getting that win again last fall, where is your confidence now as opposed to a year ago?
Oh yeah, definitely. Just keep building that confidence with more and more, experience and wins, and definitely seeing yourself get it done, and just being able to kind of think on those memories from the past, like Stevens Cup and playing in front of cameras and just big crowds is something that you can build off of and lean on, especially in tournaments like a Jones Cup or just elite events. So it definitely just keeps on building, and just are good memories to lean back on when I need them.
No question. The not only the strength of the field, the venue, Ocean Forest is one of the most demanding golf courses. In terms of beating this field and then what it does as you launch into your spring, when was the last competitive golf tournament you played before the Jones Cup? Because I'm guessing it's as long a gap as maybe you've had.
Yes, it is. I didn't play since end of October, our last college event, which was actually at Southern Hills, where I'm from. So it's been quite a long time, but I've gotten some competitive rounds in with some teammates the week before the Jones Cup, which really helped me kind of settle in and get used to playing some competitive golf. But it was a long break. You're right.
You were quoted as saying when you won on Sunday, who knows, this may be my last amateur event. Obviously, you got the spring season with your SMU team. And I bring that up because PGA Tour U and the points you're accruing and moving up with respect to that, that has to be something that you're abundantly aware of and has to be a big motivator, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, a great opportunity. And, at the end of the day, I just try and control what I can control and just work on my game, and just kind of let the scores speak for themselves, not really try and put too much emphasis and pressure on myself for those rankings, but more just focus on the game.
You mentioned Southern Hills. I've got a source that gave me a little bit of intel on you. Long time, your family has had an association. You were lucky enough, I know you feel fortunate to have grown up there. Now, from what I understand, you and another very good junior play against an older member and another guy who may be in his 20s, and you guys can't beat them? Like, if you look at it on paper, it's like these guys, the older guy and the other guy have no chance. Why can't you beat these guys?
Oh man, wow. That's crazy. I'm still asking myself that question. They have our number every time they show up, like prime Tiger out there in these matches. And man, you think they never shoot above 74. We're giving them shots nowadays. It's tough. It's tough, but no. Wow, I don't know who told you that, but man, you're right. Yep. No, it's a tough mountain to climb, for sure.
Who is that older member? Let's give him some shine.
Oh,
here.
Yep.
What's his name?
Scott Mabry.
Scott Mabry.
That's him.
He's got your number. Yep. So when you go on to professional golf, he's going to sit around the grill room at Southern Hills and say, "He never beat me."
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you go out there and watch him. It's unbelievable. I mean, the stuff he does out that place against me, but that's hilarious. You brought that up. That's
well,
so funny.
Kerry Cosby was my source, so you can blame
Awesome.
the head honcho there, the director of golf. He texted me in the middle of the night. He said, "I got some stuff for you. How about the spring? Let's look ahead." When you look ahead of the events that you guys are going to play in, and obviously you yourself. How do you continue to build, obviously, to be in your best form come really springtime?
Just, continue to just put in, the work every day, go through my practice routines, I think, and just playing competitive golf, whether that be with my teammates or at home, and just taking it one step at a time and one shot at a time, and is my kind of my thought process going into this spring and accepting kind of whatever happens.
Before I let you go, do you get the opportunity to play with some guys who are making a living playing golf? Do you get those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many pros down in Dallas. You know, I mainly play with my teammates just for now, but we have just in recent years a lot of guys that are out there who we can very easily go play with and will play with. They're usually traveling a lot during the semester, but I mean, you see guys out at Trinity Forest all the time. See like Jordan Spieth out there always getting lessons and hanging out. But yeah, no, it's definitely a good community to turn pro out of and good guys to play against.
All right, I know you're a ping guy. You're wearing the ping ball cap, but on course, you're a visor guy. I know that the Jones Cup paired you with two other guys who rocked the visor as well. When did you start wearing a visor? When you were like 10 years old?
I mean, I've kind of always worn it a little bit. I really started wearing them probably in high school, and then it kind of just stuck with me, and I've always liked the look of them, and then ever since then, it's just kind of been what I've done, and yeah, coach has been, gracious enough to get me some Imperial visors for SMU, and so I'll rock those in tournaments, and yeah, so I'll always have them on.
You wear it well. Keith Mitchell most notably does it on tour. You got to have the right melon to pull it off. You look good. Most importantly, it's a monster win. I know that you're very pleased to be able to do it against the field you did it against. Thank you for taking the time. Look forward to watching you progress during the spring and hopefully catching up then. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
You bet. That is William Sides, winner of the 22nd Jones Cup at Ocean Forest at Sea Island, one of the best amateur events in the world as he continues to move up in those PGA Tour U rankings. We take a break. Continue here. Josh Carpenter to come on this Tuesday edition of 5 Club's Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio. Back right after this. Back in this Tuesday edition of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. You can also listen, that is PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. They are in the business of business insurance. You should evaluate yours with them. They want to be right by you. Joining me now from the Sports Business Journal, we're very thrilled that he is going to be a contributor to 5 Clubs throughout 2026 when it comes to the business of the industry of golf. He is on top of it. He, of course, is Josh Carpenter. Good to see you, my friend. We are thrilled to know that you're going to be lending your voice and your thoughts to this program.
Yeah, I've told you this to you, Gary, like to go from listening to you on local sports talk radio back when I was in high school to sitting across this table from you right now, it's a pretty big thrill for me, so I'm excited.
Well, as you age me, I will try to accept it as a compliment as well.
Certainly.
This story, it's a big one because it leads to other questions about other players that now have this short window. But let me ask you about how all of this came together, because we knew that there was discontent on the part of Brooks Koepka. It was Fred Couples who put that out in the ether months ago.
Yep.
Months ago. Like, hey, he's not happy, he's going to leave. And then he shows up at a TGL event, and all this stuff has just been swirling around. Then he jointly with LIV announces that he's leaving, and then all of a sudden he applies for reinstatement. How did the language of this returning members program, how did all of this come together so swiftly?
I think this was a program that, yes, I think the tour made it seem like it came together pretty swiftly in the last month, I would say, or since Brooks, decided to leave LIV. But let's be real, this is something that Brian Rolapp has been thinking about, not since he took over officially in July of last year, but probably since a year ago when he was talking with the tour about, am I going to take this job as the CEO of the PGA Tour? Like, that's been in his mind. How do we get some of these top stars from LIV Golf back on the PGA Tour? So I think this has been in the works for a long time. It's very, if you read through all those documents that were released yesterday, there are a ton of points to this. This did not just come together over the last month, in my opinion. You look at the Tour reference, a lot of their fan research that they've done over the last year or so. The fans have all said that they want the best players in the world together, and so like that kind of advised the Tour on their decision making as part of this process. So this has not been something that just came together at the last minute. This has been a very well thought out plan by an executive who's been at the NFL for 20 plus years, one of the top executives in sports, and this is very methodical and very planned out.
Yeah, and I don't believe that he was looking at the roster of LIV going, okay, so let's set certain thresholds for the profile here. No, I think it was very narrowly focused on the ones who are the commodities, the ones that have value, the ones that you'd like to believe that the membership will digest as understanding their value immediately and in the long term with the player equity program. Let's get to the details of that. You surprised by potentially, a lot of this is potential loss of
Almost
earnings.
all of it is.
Almost, I mean, with the exception of the $5 million, and I think it's reasonable to say that Brooks Koepka will be in the FedEx Cup playoffs, so that is additional dollars. Now, he can't get FedEx Cup bonus money this year, and he cannot take sponsor exemptions in signature series events. So beyond the $5 million, how much hard money is he really losing in the immediacy?
Well, hard money, at least from a couple people I've talked to, the number that was thrown around in terms of what he had to pay to exit LIV Golf was around $30 million. A fee was kind of what was mentioned to me. And then you talk about the additional like $20 million that he gave up by not participating in LIV. So there's potentially $50 million that he gave up right there, $5 million on top of, I don't know about this 50 to 85 million. They could have said 80 million to 120 million, and I would have thought about the same about it. Like that doesn't really do a lot for me, just because it's like you said, it's potential earned based on his own competitive form, along with the value of the tour. And so I don't really read that much into that. I think it goes back a lot to what like Rory said a few weeks ago about these guys, some of the ones who have played on LIV, kind of already paying their price by not being on the tour for 4 years, by playing at a, let me see how to say this, kind of a lesser, like we've seen the TV numbers for LIV. They haven't been as high profile as the ones on tour in the States.
That's just objectively what it is.
Sure. So I think Brooks has paid a little bit of that price already, and then if you look at maybe placating some of the current PGA Tour members in terms of his return, they are equity holders in this tour now, and you bring a name like Brooks Koepka back to the PGA Tour. What does that do? It makes the tour stronger, and so that raises their equity, their value in the tour. And so from talking to a number of kind of agency player management sources yesterday, most of them are pretty okay with this move. And there's not a ton of discontent. There's a little bit, but there's not a ton of discontent, at least among the people I've talked to around this move.
Yeah, two things. I think the players who have the loudest voices, whether it be in the Player Advisory Council or the most high-profile players, they're not hurt by this, and I also think there's relationships there. And then at the when I say lower level, I hate saying that because they're all aliens in terms of being on that platform to do what they do. Yeah. But I think that one of the things that was very important is the thing that they protected, which is his presence will cost no one, meaning him being in a field is not depriving somebody else.
It's not going to knock out number 100.
Correct.
Right? He has to, everyone talks about the meritocracy of the PGA Tour. He has to play his way into these signature events. Now he does get into the Players' Championship, which is, in my opinion, it's a beefy signature. That's a signature event. So he does get into that by way of, winning a major championship just 3 years ago at the PGA Championship. But yeah, you're right. He doesn't knock out number, 100 or someone who's fighting to gain one of those signature spots.
Or number 70 when it comes to the FedEx Cup playoffs.
And another piece of this is he keeps some of these tournament directors who may be, we've talked about the shrinking of the tour, maybe some of these tournament directors who potentially could lose a tournament or their tournament could lose stature. Brooks Koepka might be playing in your tournament this year.
Yes.
That's another carrot that's part of this that I don't think should be overlooked.
No, I don't either. All right, so February 2nd, the deadline for the 3 players who fit the criteria of eligibility based on their performance from 2022 through 2025. It's Bryson, it's Rahm, it's Cam Smith. Do you think that any of those 3, does one seem more realistic than the other, or realistically are all 3 not going anywhere?
I would say if you had to pick one, you would say Bryson is probably the most likely, although I still see it as a little doubtful. Cam Smith, there's been a report out of Australia this morning saying that he's not going anywhere. Cam has
surprise.
He's really leaned into the geographical, his Australian team on LIV. Like he's really leaned into that. He's unlike Brooks. Brooks did not lean into the team aspect of LIV at all. Cam has, Rahm has, even to an extent. There's been a lot of talk about like whether Rahm really wanted to go to LIV or if he thought that was going to be a catalyst for the 2 tours to come together. But Rahm has a sponsorship for his team now. He's been a little bit more involved. Bryson has come out in the last month or so and said, hey, like things have to get better on LIV. He's got a deal that runs through the end of this year. So I think Bryson would maybe be the one that you would look at and say, would he come back? A lot of Bryson's YouTube stuff that he's been doing, he can do that if he's a member of the PGA Tour. Now, can he film on the course? Not as much as maybe he's allowed to on LIV. But he can do a lot of the stuff, a lot of his breaking 50 videos that he's done. Like he can do that as a member of the PGA Tour. He's allowed to do that.
Right.
And so I don't know what the future looks like with Bryson. I know he has a lot of leverage now with the PIF and with LIV to go back to them and say, hey, I've got this opportunity over here.
Nobody has more.
So if you don't want me to do that, then I'm going to need a bigger paycheck.
You surprised that it wasn't 2021? Why 2022? I honestly think that this is not accidental. 2021, Phil Mickelson won a major championship. There was no way, even though he's not coming back, that they were going to create a scenario where he would be among the players eligible to return. I don't think that was an accident.
Brian Rolap, I think they took they went this direction with some guidance from that Future Competitions Committee, right?
Yes.
And who's the head of that Future Competitions Committee?
It's Tiger Woods.
We all know Tiger and Phil have never really been, linked arms on everything. And Phil was part of a lawsuit against the PGA Tour.
Absolutely.
So of course they're gonna,
these guys were not.
These 4 were not part of that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they're going to they won't say that.
Right.
But of course, they're going to go out of their way a little bit to make sure that doesn't happen. I think, and I mentioned to you before we came on air, part of this too is if you go to 22 and beyond, any of these players would have at least a 2-year exemption on tour.
Right, Brooks is through 2028 because of his 23 PGA.
Cam Smith won the 22 Open, so he'd be through 27. So that would at least give them a 2-year runway if they choose to do so to play on tour. Whereas maybe Brooks doesn't have a great season this year. Maybe he wouldn't qualify for next year.
It's not tenuous for him next year.
Exactly. And so I think that maybe played into it as well.
Last thing, he's announced that he will start his season at the Farmers. We see him before then?
Yeah, my kind of like fun prediction is that maybe we see him at TGL next week. The Jupiter team, Brooks lives in Jupiter. He's like very close to the arena down there. And TGL has been very open to just bringing, not random players, but it seems like they'll just, Corey Connors and Chris Goddard have just showed up 12 hours before that first match. So like, what if we see Brooks like walking through the smoke at the SoFi Center next week?
Be good business.
I think it'd be, they have the CFP on ESPN the night before their match next week. They can promote it. TGL's television numbers have been a little bit soft, in my opinion, over their first 3 matches, and so maybe it's a way to provide some juice around that. And then also, maybe you put Brooks in front of the media next week before he goes to Farmers in a couple weeks. So when he goes to Farmers, maybe it's not as much of a circus in terms of him doing media for the first time, being seen kind of out in the wild. Maybe you can kind of do a soft launch next week.
It's great to see you. Excited about having you with us, not to mention all your great work at Sports Business Journal. Thanks so much.
Great to be here, Gary.
All right, we come back. Some final thoughts right after this. Back in, couple minutes left. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. this Crown Flex Merino shirt jacket that I'm wearing, you can wear it. Just go to petermillar.com. Plus, the spring line is rolling into not only all their retail locations, but also on the website. It is Peter Millar and petermillar.com. Tomorrow, we will have Taylor Zarzour on the program, who also a contributor here to 5 Clubs, as well as having Brendan DeYoung in studio as well. So those guys for an extended period of time to not only get their thoughts on the Brooks Koepka news, whether they think that there is any plausibility to Rahm, DeChambeau, or Cam Smith choosing this path before February 2nd. I personally don't think it's realistic and likely to happen. But again, I think the most important thing that Brian Rolap said with respect to this is that this window obviously is going to close swiftly, and it doesn't mean it's going to open again. But when the window does open again, the criteria might be different because there may be somebody else, and the penalties or the financial restitution that is being asked or required of that player could be higher, could be lower. That's why precedent is a moving object, and it always is, especially when you open a window and close it as swiftly as they're going to do, because the conditions and the dynamics are likely to change between now and then. Plus, tomorrow, the dogs return for 2026. And we start making picks. Sony Open has a very good field, not surprisingly. The swan song, in very all likelihood, for that event at Waialae Country Club and the Dubai Invitational. And one note, we will be on the air on Sunday at 5 p.m. live, leading you to Golf Central pregame in the final round of the Sony Open. How about that? Have a great Tuesday, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.